Testing. What's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. Ghost is here. Let me chime him in.
Hello,
Ghost. You there?
Yeah, can you hear me? How's the audio?
I hear you perfectly, my friend.
Great. Excellent. Excellent.
Let me, there we go. That's a much better view right now. All right. Everybody, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the chat. Also as well, hi everybody out there. First and foremost, right off the bat, let's wish the Ghost a happy birthday. It's tomorrow. How's that, huh?
Okay. Thank you very much, Armando. Appreciate it.
You didn't think I'd forget about you, huh?
Nah, you're on top of things, brother, always.
Fantastic. Well, anyway, okay, look, audio sounds good. Video is good. At least from my end. I actually decided to, level up tonight and put on a damn jacket, right? Because it's kind of chilly in here. It's always cold in the studio.
Nice jacket. I like it. My style.
Thank you, sir. I always like to keep it real. You know what I mean? And I got my coffee mug with me too. So, hey, we're good.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, guys. So, quick announcement here real quick. Let me just get this stuff out of the way if you guys do not mind. Jeff Davis may be chiming in a little bit later on in the stream. He sent me a message a little earlier letting me know that he had a surprise visit from family that flew in from out of town, and they had just gotten seated for dinner. I'm assuming it's probably his mom and stuff like that. Maybe even his dad too also as well, because they had a gender reveal, which I still do not know what that was. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that they're here for that. So hopefully Jeff will pop into the stream. And if he doesn't, totally fine. I totally get it. It's all good, man. We're going to have fun here tonight anyway. With that said, other announcements that are coming in. If you're getting value or you get value out of this stream today, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you for the support. Don't forget to visit the website, www.pewpewnationtvunchained.com, for some deep rabbit hole dives, as always, because that's how we roll over there. As a reminder, we are here on YouTube, so let's be respectful in the chat. Let's be respectful on everything, just to abide by their community standards and guidelines. So I'm just putting that out there right now as fair warning. And we're going to try to keep it civil. Maybe. I don't know.
I'll try.
Yes, sir. In any event, I just got a little feed across the wire. I'll get this out of the way real quick, and then I'll hand it over to you, my friend. As you guys maybe you might know or you might not know, 5 days from today is 23 October, and it is my anniversary of 23 October 83, where the Marine barracks over in Lebanon, after the embassy was viciously attacked and bombed. And I just got a feed a few minutes ago that there are plans in store for the same thing to happen tomorrow. And they're drastically trying to get personnel, non-essential personnel, whoever might be there, out of that area ASAP, because from what I hear, this is imminent. Okay, so we'll just leave it at that. So pray for those folks, those Americans that are over there. I hear that the numbers are up quite large. Dagnar, yes, nothing on TV right now. Joe is on all the big networks. Yes. And a buddy of mine over at Turner sent me a picture of the White House, and it is glowing red outside, red lights. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's a Halloween thing. Maybe he's got a visitor from down under. Okay, I don't know. So we'll see. In any event, so tonight's topics, as long as it's up to you, Ghost, because I'm giving you the floor here. If you guys got questions, I will scan the questions first. Let me turn that off. I will scan the questions first, and if they're permissible, I will go ahead and read them. If they're not, I won't, because like I said, we're on YouTube. But tonight's topics, if he wants to, I'd like to go over, the UFO 2.0 card. Will it be played again? Don't know. Maybe. We want to talk about, the Middle East, the war. Could there be an expansion coming? Don't know that either. Number 3 is USA threat concerns, especially, at the border. And number 4, what should we be prepared for? Supply chain problems, financial problems, fuel prices. I know that I'm almost certain fuel prices are going to be on the spike. So with that, and if you want to chime in and kind of correlate something based on Vatican assassins ghost, by all means, chime in, and I'll be monitoring the chat. So take it away, my friend. The floor is yours.
Let's start with 2, 3, and 4, and then we'll get to 1.
Okay.
UFO card last. Middle East, as far as expansion. Well, let's look at it from the beginning. No one I know in the intelligence community or any number of other people that monitor these things believes in any way, shape, or form, again, that Mossad, IDF dropped the ball on this. When I know for a fact that Egyptian intelligence, and this was before it was out there, had given them 10-day warning and repeated reports. Hey, something's going on here. There's a lot of strange movements, not typical. As you know, it wasn't typical. And, that from day one, that was, in my mind, it was okay. When they said, this is I think it was Netanyahu said, and I love how the president's treating him now, because he's treating him the way he needs to be treated. And I'll give an example of that later. It was from the very beginning. Okay, yes, this is your 9/11. Yeah, an inside job, absolutely. And now we're finding out, a lot of the reports. I don't care when they put that one colonel up and he's well spoken and he gives these reports and says share them. They'll be all over different everything from YouTube to TikTok, you name it. This is all, again, this is a globalist move. Israel, North Korea, and Taiwan, lastly, for a long time, they were break glass in case of need of war. And things didn't go quite their way in Ukraine. All of a sudden, you have this. And they can give all the history and excuses they want regarding Iran. So much of it, and people will see this in the coming days, is not as purported. For example, the report, a bomb hit the hospital, men, women, children were murdered. No, a rocket fell short and hit the parking lot, for example. And that was reported today, finally. It hit the parking lot, caused a little damage. I don't know if anyone was injured or killed, but it wasn't as first advertised. And I think you're going to find a lot coming out of that, this whole, what appears to be a conflict, not as advertised. Now, if they want to, if Israel wants to close down Gaza into a more fortified and closed open air prison, that's their thing. And when you see things like, I talked to a good friend of mine today, and we got on the subject of, the protesters in the Capitol. Well, the reality behind that group of protesters, you're not going to find on MSM, and you're not going to see reported anywhere even in alternative in this country. And here's the story behind that. Most of them are actually claiming to be Jews. Most of them are not. It's not that they're Palestinians either. What they are is an organization that usually bilks funds from things like the Ford Foundation or ThyssenKrupp out of Germany.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that again. ThyssenKrupp out of Germany. Okay. And, you know, then I asked him, I said, well, what about, you know, good old IG Farben? And he said, well, most of that operation had moved to Wisconsin. Where do we have a lot of trouble? You know, several years ago, Minnesota and Wisconsin. Again, border states to Canada. There's a lot more to that, and tracing back to Europe and globalists. So when I say Germany, I'm talking about a link between Germany and Belgium. Yes, my friends in Belgium. And if you have a problem with what I'm saying, again, don't bother my friends. Call me or come to my door. Don't bother them. You know, enough is enough. But, you know, if you know the history, if people know the history going back to World War II with Krupp Steel and IG Farben, IBM, etc., Union Bank of New York, where Granddaddy Bush was funneling lots of money in the 30s to the Third Reich, to Hitler, through IG Farben and Krupp Steel and other corporate concerns, some that still exist today. You know, they were going to, they threatened to embarrass him basically by exposing it, because that's all they can do. Why? Because in the banking structure in 1916, it was introduced 1919, the act was passed, and it's called the EDGE Act. If you go into SEC filings for, say, oh, I don't know, Northern Trust, you're going to see 1,000 paper tigers listed throughout the islands in the Caribbean, in the Channel Islands, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, a number of other locations, Switzerland. And a number of banks in Switzerland right now are funneling money for all of these shenanigans. As always, hasn't stopped, nothing new about it. But you'll see where their location is given an alphanumeric designation, kind of like a zip code. It references the financial jurisdiction or the legal jurisdiction that they're in, where they're engaging in business, all of the sub-corporations that they'll run things through. But some you'll see it won't be an alphanumeric designation. It'll say EDGE Act. And what is the EDGE Act? Well, between 1919 and 1963, it was primarily used by the top 6 banks. Union Bank of New York was one of them, and then morphed into Citibank, Bank of America, and several others. It wasn't until 1963 that they really started utilizing. Now, what happened in 63? Well, Kennedy was killed and the Vietnam War began its escalation. Now, what does the EDGE Act allow someone to do? Well, it's an office inside of a bank, inside of a headquarters building, that is its own jurisdiction, that completely subverts the Trading with the Enemies Act. So right now, all of these countries, oh, we're going to do all these horrible sanctions against Iran or Russia or whomever, but it doesn't matter, because through EDGE Act jurisdiction, they can do business as usual. It's completely legal. Not lawful or moral, I would say, but completely legal. So, you know, we're looking at shades of history still repeating themselves. Same players. Different geographical locations at times, but same basic globalist players. The big families that everybody knows, the royals that people know, and then the names of royals that people aren't familiar with. You know, very few people know. You want to go Vatican assassins, very few people know that there is always, and there always has been, and there is to the present day, a coronated Roman emperor. Now, I'm going to drop these things. I want people to do their homework on it, because I want them to prove to themselves that what I'm saying is true. And all these structures have been in place. You know, they've morphed over time, expanded, go through fronts such as UBS or Credit Suisse. The list goes on and on. Deutsche Bank, for example. Yeah. And what you find when you go back with the Ukrainian situation, how Germany was caught in the middle and trying to broker or be a part of the brokering of deals to keep the energy flowing, for example, things like that. Germany has never ceased being a pain in the ass, and their cohort is Belgium, and they're basically, you know, the let's say the strong arm of the European Union, or hopefully what will fracture into less and less countries in the European Union. I know there's a strong movement in Finland to get out of the European Union. They call it Fix It, just like the British exodus was Brexit. And what you have in Israel is the same situation here when you're talking about societal engineering. They were far ahead of us when it came to, we were outraged when the drag queens began reading to kindergartners and first graders. No, that had been going on in Israel for quite a while. People that I know in Israel calling me and telling me, hey, it's Sodom and Gomorrah years ago. And I had told them, certain individuals, a decade prior to that, this is going to happen. And they're going to try the same stuff here. And, well, you know, we're seeing it. We're seeing it play out. What we're seeing is the propagation of mass confusion, whether it is duplicating what happened in China in the 60s regarding the entire gender. I'm trying to be careful on FluffTube.
Yeah.
The entire gender agenda, which is, you know, actually a minuscule aspect of the population. But again, you know, repeat. And the bigger the lie, the more it's repeated, the more it sticks within people's minds. And, you know, I don't know how it's going to fold out. No one does over there other than those who are planning it. But their agenda is to, since Ukraine wasn't going to go that way, was, again, a major world conflict. Some say, oh, that's not going to happen for years. There's going to be a buildup. Those saying that have no evidence to that effect. We don't know. But I can tell you this. You know, I do not believe the situation in Israel and the Middle East is going to go any further towards World War, maybe closer, but not quite. You know, this is what they want. This will make their reset, their Davos WEF reset, much easier if we can get into a world conflagration. But in the end, I don't see it quite working out that way for them. And, you know, it's again, there has to be a boogeyman. There has to be a new conflict. There has to be, can you hear me? Or I'm seeing something.
No, I can hear you fine. I just wanted
Okay.
now, based on what you just said, two things really quick. I happened to check out a Unredacted today. There is a Marine Corps veteran. His last name is Ritter. He's a journalist, and he's also a contributor, if you will. And he did a bit stating that with the two battle groups that we have over there from the Navy, and the other one that we have an amphibious float, if you will, that's got currently right now 2,000 Marines also out there. He was saying that if this goes south, if Israel fights on two fronts, which in my opinion, I think they already are, now you have these reported threats by the media. It's all over the place now that the embassy over in Lebanon is going to get hit. You have Syria involved. You've got Iran obviously involved. And there are other players in the region that are involved also as well. They're calling for another day of rage for tomorrow. Okay. All over the place. And Ritter is talking about, we don't have anything else behind that, because our military right now is so unmanned, weakened, and, with Ukraine in the mix, we cannot fight a battle on two different fronts around the globe. He said, let alone, and this is again his opinion, he's stating that we can't even fight one right now. So if the big boys get involved here, we're done. We're screwed. I mean, that's kind of worrying and concerning, And now the other second part to this, Ghost, is this. I've been hearing also as well that Poland, their fate is in a flux right now. What do you know about that?
Poland, I wish I were up on that more, honestly. I do know the population there was overwhelmingly against any involvement with Ukraine or getting involved with a war with Russia. All of that, of all the countries in Europe, if you go back to World War I and II, but especially World War II, my God, what a pasting they took in every way possible. Their intelligentsia, their intellectuals, their leaders, their officer corps wiped out by the Russians, first the Germans to a degree, to where they felt they had it under control.
Yes.
And then when Russia pushed that, Eastern Front back into Poland, well, they knew they knew what their agenda was going to be at the end of the war. They were going to hold on to that, and eventually we saw the forming of the Iron Curtain, and they killed thousands and thousands of the officer corps for the of anyone that was left that had been a member, that hadn't had the chance to get out and say get to England, where they could reform, and they fought in a number of battles with the Allies, Market Garden, for example, and a number of other. They had some very good pilots that fought throughout the war. And Poland has always been in the middle of this, going back to the Prussian Empire. And they've always been in the middle between them and what the Germans had always considered, their arch enemy, especially after the Russian Revolution. So we're, our military industrial establishment is doing the same damn thing in a sense. where we were putting, anti-missile batteries there, a number of military, let's say, forces and gadgets. And it's putting them right there in the middle of another possible, if this should explode, but I don't see it going that way. I don't see Russia rushing into any world war. Their relationship with China, for example, is not a lovey-dovey. It's by convenience right now. And the Russians have made their doctrine plainly clear with the Chinese that if you cross the border, we're not going to meet you with tanks and infantry. We're going to nuke you where you cross. And it was basically the same doctrine they applied to any boots crossing into Ukraine through NATO or any other country, such as Poland, which Poland wouldn't have done. I don't believe that for a minute. So, in the end, the bottom line is this is the globalist. Those who own the franchise to print the money, or to, let's say, to not only print, but decide the laws, including this country, of what is done with money, why people are enslaved rather than empowered by a currency of value, hence the BRICS nations. So we've got to look at this realistically, and Russia's not exactly our friend. Outside the United States border, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And long time ago, about 6-7 years ago, Putin announced that he had kicked out basically what you would call the Rothschild banking system from Russia, and made it clear that if they tried to reestablish themselves covertly, that they would eliminate them. They would treat them as spies and simply take care of business. Now, what we have in this country is Russian networks that have been here generationally. And since late 20, more and more have been crossing the border. We know this. They've been tracking them. Again, a lot of those tracking flights, those survey flights, 30 or 40,000 sorties in the last year and a half, have been monitoring many groups, especially those skilled with the capabilities of WMDs that have crossed the border, not only Russians, but Belarusians, and plenty of Chinese, and then all of the military age males from certain countries in Central and South America. What their role is remains to be seen. It's pretty obvious, though. They would engage in basically sabotage and subversion in this country, taking out power grids, etc., or a lot of our oil facilities are so vulnerable. Our power plants, a lot of that's been secured much better in the past, let's say, decade than it had been. But we're still vulnerable to a lot of that, and where it goes, again, remains to be seen. Do I think there's going to be incidents in this country along those lines? Absolutely, I do, and I'm not the only one. And those that I work with or confer with feel the same way. But there's no way to tell where and when, unless you're getting reports on active intercepts and things like that. So, and you're right in that many good military minds, like I've been up since 2:30 this morning, so forgive me if I stumble a little on names, but what is it? Colonel McGregor,
Yes. Mhm.
And a few other generals that have been vocal on this issue are saying basically the same thing. When you're talking about, us borrowing 500,000 155 rounds from South Korea to then hand over to Ukraine, we've got to make that up. And the only thing I've read on the increased manufacture of 155s has been the one plant has increased their output to 80,000 rounds a month. Well, in a year, that would be 960,000. So the 500,000's paid off, and you've got 460,000 left over. And we are in a bad state. A lot of the missiles that we would need, or anti-missile missiles that we would need to manufacture, a lot of those assembly lines can be reactivated, but it's going to take time. If there's any type of major event, we don't have that time. So yes, in a lot of ways, we are deficient logistically, but to be honest, I don't see us getting to that point. I don't. It's not that I don't think. It's pretty much that Russia is not going to fall into the trap of feeding into World War III. China is not in any shape to do that, because outside of the South China Sea, the U.S. Navy is still what pretty much guarantees safe transfer of commercial goods on the open seas. I think we're at about 70 to 80 destroyers, and about half of those are now with the carrier groups. We'd actually need 10 times that to regain the status we once had of maintaining the sea lanes for commerce. And China is not exactly in a economically great position to begin with right now. So, factoring all of these things in, Iran, yes, I guarantee you they had a lot to do with the planning and the placement, say in Syria and Jordan, of a lot of their units. But we're also there. The Russians are also there. We have open communication lines to them, so no stupid mishaps happen. And there's been games played back and forth, but the usual brinkmanship. And I say at this point, we just have to see what the Israelis are going to do. Now, are they going to push into Gaza? Are they going to they've already given the warning for civilians to move south beyond a certain, I think it's a natural border of a river. And you have Hamas telling them, no, you're not moving. You're going to stay right where you are. Well, in the end, the Israelis, you can't blame them for doing what they're going to do. They are planning a major offensive for for 2/3 of Gaza, the northern section. I don't blame them for what they're going to do. But if Hamas is making the civilians, threatening them, killing them, to keep them in their apartments, their flats, what can you do at this point? And then you have the West Bank, you have the Golan Heights, and Hezbollah in that region. Um, you know, and the Israelis, I think they have an active force of about 100,000 at any one given time. But you're talking, I think they reactivated 360,000 reservists. And you're talking about people that may have been out for a few years. They're not in the best of shape. It's kind of like, and I'm not demeaning anyone here. You know, I was active duty. I know you were active duty. There's quite a difference between active duty and reserve and guard. You know, and if one doesn't keep themselves prepared while under the obligation of a reserve or a guard status, say in Israel as a reserve, say an active or inactive ready reserve, either one. If you don't take it seriously while you're still in that window of obligation, you're not going to be as effective as a fighter on foot, armored, or what have you. So it's, I find it a very sad, pathetic situation that the political aspects going on that are under the control, again, of the globalist agenda have allowed to happen. That the Israelis, the better minds among them, allowed this to happen there. And again, they have a population of 9.5 million. Much easier to do. That's just one state in the United States. That's the population of New Jersey, for example, roughly. It's not that difficult to manipulate them and, you know, implement the sociological engineering that breaks down the very moral fabric of a nation such as Israel. And this has been happening for a number of years, and not enough people put their foot down. And I think they're probably like we are in many ways. We're not nearly as far down that path, but if we don't watch out, we will be. I don't think China's sitting back, and I think they're just watching it all. And Russia, I don't think they're not going to allow this globalist cabal to pull them into what they want as a third world war. So I think we have time to reconnoiter the entire situation a little bit longer, despite the horrible and unfortunate things that will occur in the West Bank, Gaza, and in Israel. And it's very sad.
And with regards to that, Ghost, here's, I don't know, just my opinion where I see things, based on what you were talking about, the Israeli, the IDF. Their enlistment over there, mandatory, I think, is for 2.5 years. That's what every citizen is required to serve. And then you're right. Once they get out, I mean, they take on regular jobs, you know, being whatever it is, and now they get activated. And yes, in my opinion, I don't think their army is as good as people claim them to be, because I would agree. Because of that ratio. Yes, 100,000 strong that are active duty, that are trained. You have your special operations people involved in that mix as well, that know the layout of Gaza, that know about the tunnels, that know about, you know, strategic locations. But here's the thing. It's only a very small percentage that know Gaza like the back of their hand. Okay. Right. Only a small percentage. The 300 and something thousand reservists, they are what they are. They're reservists, right? I mean, you know, they're not up to speed in CQB. They're not, you know, up to speed in guerrilla tactics. They're just not, because as the old saying goes, when it comes to training, if you don't use it, you lose it over time.
Exactly.
You got perishable
skills.
There you go.
Shooting a rifle, And a pistol is a perishable skill. If you don't go to the range or you don't go to your own place in the woods, yes, your skills will deteriorate over time.
Yeah.
And they do have a half dozen, I would say, excellent world-class special forces units, but they don't have multiples. And they're very good at what they do, but if you lose one, you've lost a very potent aspect of your force regarding IDF. One thing about IDF that I will say is they do have a fantastic Air Force. And I think they're going to have to come to rely on that in the end. And that'll use, they may have to use munitions that are frowned upon, cluster munitions. We've used them. Other countries have used them. They've been used in Ukraine. And, Geneva Convention be damned. If you're talking about the survival of their country, they're going to do what they have to do. And Mossad, out of all the intel agencies in the world, I'll give it Mossad one thing: they get the job done, and they are very, let's say, they have a lot less compassion for those they have to deal with than other intel agencies, and you can't blame them where they exist. They have to be that way.
Yep.
And my questions are, were they kept in the dark? And the one interesting thing that would support that is look at how President Trump has been coming down on Netanyahu. Because contrary to MSM and popular belief and myth, Netanyahu was not exactly the ally everyone thinks he was. Trump played it very well while he was in office. He played it the best he could with what he had coming against him. Our own intelligence agencies going against him with the Russia hoax, etc. These 50 intelligence officers signing off on the Russia hoax, for example. And it is plain as the hand in front of anyone's face that it was all false. Why? Because it's not your average agent, officer, case officer, field agent. It is the hierarchy. Again, most of the agencies in not just the United States, I'm talking about 5 eyes, and even up to 9 and 14 eyes, are nothing more than private detective agencies for the international, the supranational, sovereign banking layer. And until this is identified for what it is, and that is taken out, we're going to have all of this nonsense, all of these conflicts that are arising. They seem to arise out of nowhere. It's just going to continue. And the thing is, there are so many great, and I know so many people are down on CIA, for example. I'll use that because that's the most recognizable. You have a lot of wonderful people in that agency who do a hell of a job. And many of them have paid the ultimate price, especially in the last 20 years. But they're kept so compartmentalized, they don't see the forest for the trees. They don't question outside of their area of expertise, whether it's human intelligence, analysis, what have you. And a lot of that is changing. You're seeing that questioning within a lot of the agencies. There's roughly 30, 32, 17 that are known in some degree by the public. But, the reality is the United States has to revert back to the Republic, repopulate the Republic, which does exist, but is not populated, meaning the constitutional jurisdiction. And you want to go to Vatican assassins? I implore everyone in the audience to check who has actual ownership of the 100 square miles of Washington, D.C. When you find that answer, you'll find it's the same one that owned the Watergate Hotel at the time of Nixon, and that is the Vatican. And where that all plays into it, I think we need to do a separate show completely on that. Because,
we are.
Yeah,
we are.
Because that's important for people to understand the history and the wide-reaching influence of that storefront of a religion. And I know there's a lot of, I mean, I was born and raised Roman Catholic. Do I follow it? No. At the age of 13, you know, they basically said, don't bring him back. He has too many questions. Well, at that point in my life, it was, you know, okay, I love God, but you guys can take a back seat. You know, I don't have to confess to someone my sins. I can do that to God directly, myself, quietly, in a dark room, any time of the day that I feel I've transgressed. End of statement on that. But yeah, that's a whole, that's not a ball of wax. That's a mountain.
Yeah, it is. It is a mountain. And for those of you guys out there right now, what Ghost just said about Vatican assassins, and again, not a plug, because most of you guys here are already signed up on the monthly for the website over at, PewPewNationTVUnchained.com. If you have not gone there yet, for $1.99 a month, you will get free access to the PDF book version of Vatican Assassins, which currently right now, last time I checked, it's on Amazon. You can buy the book if you want to, but it's going to run you right around $350. It has come down from almost $1,000. Okay. Now, some people may ask, well, why is it so much money? I don't know. In my opinion, I guess it's because you don't want to read it. Right. So, but anyway, it is available. So if you have not gotten a copy of that, because like Ghost said, we are going to dive deep into that, and we'll do it over on the website. Now, based on that,
a lot of work was put into that. And I think, you know, the individuals that worked on it, I think they deserved $1,000 at first.
It was 25 years of work.
Yeah.
It was 25 years of work. Yeah.
We have, let me put it, I'll just say this, because I don't want to raise the ire of the Jesuits, but there is a very large church organization in this country out of Utah that has partially been set up as a parallel organization to what the Jesuits have been doing for centuries. And I'm not talking Dan Brown nonsense. That's all fanciful and wonderful, you know, entertainment. Don't go there for your answers. Yes, there is some reality in those books and films, but that's not the true reality of what we're talking about. It goes far. It's far more expansive than that. And one man that I would say definitely read everything that he puts out. Support this man in any way you can, and that's Archbishop Vigano. You know, he's under special protection by several organizations because he speaks out against the tyranny of what is going on in Rome now and has been going on. I think the last decent Pope we had was John Paul. Yeah. Mario Puzo's work isn't that far off from reality when you get to Godfather 3, for example. But we'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I wanted to drop in here, going back to what you were talking about, with the whole Israeli situation and, all of the, propaganda that's been flying around, all over the place. Uh, a lot of people don't know this, but I read that, Israel, before this even started, that they were on the verge of civil war. And
Yes.
they didn't have a very strong popular feeling towards Bibi Netanyahu. And the reason being is because from what I read, that he had made changes to laws, he had made changes to their constitution, and he got a lot of people on one side of the aisle very, very upset, and they were on the verge of civil war. And it was very, very close. And all of a sudden, presto, here comes Hamas. And now they forgot all about that. And they all had to band together to protect the homeland. So, and there's not a lot of people talking about this out there, and which leads to wonder. And then all of a sudden, the mainstream media, well, this was Israel's 9/11, Israel's 9/11, Israel's 9/11. And I'm like, okay, sure, why not? Yeah, of course. But from inside the house, I mean,
Yeah, exactly. And you can't forget the Balfour Declaration. What banking family, what banking dynasty was behind that? Rothschilds. And what is Israel? It is their country to manipulate. And they have manipulated it. And the Israeli people will wake up to the fact that, well, there's been several interviewed, and I believe it was Nathan, when asked, "Are you a practicing Jew? And do you believe in God?" And he answered him quite frankly, "No, I'm not." And you see, this is where where reality meets the road, where the rubber meets the road regarding reality with all of this. It's their break glass in case of need of war. And they don't give a damn about the Israeli people. They don't give a damn about the average Israeli citizen. They simply do not.
And
go ahead.
If they drop the ball, my fear is if they drop the ball on this and they don't play their cards right, especially with this land assault that they're getting ready to do, they're going to take casualties. Everybody knows that. And they're going to have casualties on both sides. Sadly, though, there are going to be civilian ones also as well. Okay, because these 300,000 reservists, I'm telling you, I know that environment very, very well. Okay, when you go through door to door, okay, inch by inch, foot by foot, you're going to be met with IEDs. You're going to be met with booby traps. You're going to be met with all kinds of hell because the other side is they're trained very, very well. That's all they've done. Okay, is prepare and fight. And I'm telling you, they're tough. They're really, really tough. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I see that if this thing goes to where I believe it's going to go, you have an awful lot of Israeli citizens that have dual passports. And if they start fleeing the country and getting out, they're never going to come back. And they'll lose it.
A lot of them have already.
I hope it doesn't come to that, but holy cow. I mean, which, we'll segue over now, Ghost. Let's just continue going down here. Number 2, you wanted to go ahead and touch on the USA threat, because right now, all of the eyes of the entire world, rightfully so, because of the traumatic, thing that's happened over there in the Middle East. All eyes are over there. Everybody's laser focused on the Middle East right now, especially, the media outlets. They're laser focused over there. There is somewhat of an alert status that has been reported all over the media also as well on the FBI. Basically has told everybody that we are now in a heightened state of alert. because of the border situation. We don't know who's coming in. You know, you have these protests going on the college campuses. You have protests going out in front of the White House. You know, now no violence so far as what's being reported, but there is a presence there, not just here in America, around the globe as well, but in focus here in America. Okay. Concerns, especially at the border, you know, people are freaking out, especially now with this whole deal about, and this was an accident, by the way, of the Hornady plant, that unfortunately a female worker died in that explosion because something went wrong when they were processing primers. Something went wrong, and there was an explosion. And when that explosion happened, the whole industry went into a panic. Well, not because of the explosion. They went into a panic because, especially Lake City, which is basically federal, 30% of everything that they produce and they put out goes to military contracts. It goes to, you know, DOD. It goes, you know, Mike, it goes there, which is military industrial complex. For those of you that don't know, they have orders, they have contracts to fill. Okay, so they stopped production and shipping to the commercial market, which the end user is you and I. Okay, and a lot of other manufacturers followed suit after that explosion. What a coincidence that happened at that time. Okay, I don't know. I just found it very weird. So, based on
When's
the
the
USA,
last time that's happened?
I can't remember ever.
Exactly.
I can't remember ever.
My advice to PMC and all the other round manufacturers, ammunition manufacturers, small arms ammunition manufacturers would be tighten your security. Tighten your security.
Oh boy.
And also, you know, hire a good private intelligence agency to go through your entire workforce. Because you could have a sleeper in there who's been there 8-10 years. But when they're given that green light, yeah, what is the most explosive part? Yeah, the powder, of course, you know, but primers. Primers are shipped. If I order primers in bulk to fill my own, you know, press my own rounds at home, that comes under hazmat regulations. But if I buy 1,000 rounds or 4,000 rounds of 308 or 45 or whatever, that's normal shipping through UPS.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Because the primers are what ignites the round, and that is, it's not fulminate of mercury anymore. It's a more stable but highly explosive compound that's in the primer, and that makes sense that's where that would have happened. That would have the most effect, and my advice to all ammunition manufacturers, and it's a shame it's Hornady because they make probably, in my opinion, the best rounds out there.
And they focus more for the hunting community and the rifle community than they do for the pistol community. You know what I mean? That's
exactly. Yeah.
Which is crazy.
I mean,
but
a box of 308 now of Hornady is $39. That's almost $2 a round.
So it's 45.
Yeah. And whereas I can still get Remington and a few others at anywhere from 99 cents to $1.20 for that particular caliber. And it changes with the others. But I don't mean to cause a rush on ammunition, but if Americans don't have the ammunition they need by now, you better get it.
Yeah, it's too late. And the shelves are running dry. Supplies are running this. I mean, here, especially to me here locally, my daughter has gone out to try to locate, and she's gone to 3 or 4 known retail outlets here locally, even some of the bigger chain ones like Academy, and their shelves are empty. They're empty, and they're waiting to get shipments. But now with the commercial shipping, especially coming from Lake City, which is federal, on permanent halt until further notice. I mean, I'm sorry, it's going to create not only a panic, which is what I'm afraid of, is the panic, price increase, number 2, and then of course, it's like they say, buy a bunch and then turn around and resell it, for a massive profit, like happened some years back. And not to mention, the firearm shortage. I mean, there is a gentleman that I know local here, that I know him personally. He's the owner. He's got a range, and he has the retail side also as well. I spoke to him the other day, and he told me he had like 6 or 7 Israeli fellows that went in there, and they cleaned him out of everything. Best day he's ever had in sales, 40,000+, and they cleaned him out, took everything with the exception of a few pistols. And they asked him, hey, and no, that's staying here at home, because we know what's happening and we know who's here. That's all they said, and they walked out.
Yeah. And, this is what, it's not only trained military and intelligence services, trained professionals that have crossed that border. It's MS-13. And it's other gangs and other groups that have been funneled up, and they've been in the country for a good 4 or 5 years. That's when there was an influx of those types of individuals. And it's not only, let's put it this way. They were given hit lists, and
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah,
But
and so the higher trained ones will give the orders to them to move, and they'll go about their business on a higher level, as far as infrastructure, as far as I would say every refinery, every food processing. How many food processing plants did we lose?
A lot.
A good half dozen. I could be low ending that, where there were explosions and fires. Now I'm going to give you some more information. I'm not going to say where this is occurring, but you have, well, I'll give you one state that's a prime example because it's more well known. New Mexico. You have globalist Soros organization type backed companies moving in, paying off state legislators, changing laws, and commandeering, in essence, legally, not what you would call morally or lawfully, but legally, because if you change a law, and as long as you're acting within the confines of that law or series of laws, they're acquiring water systems, putting family farms and towns on restrictions. And there's an individual I've got to get back in touch with in New Mexico in particular to get brought up to speed on that and how it's increased. But in other areas of the country, east of that and northeast of that, there have been fields that in the middle of the night, crop dusters came over.
Oh my God, here we go.
And the chemicals that they were releasing not only killed the crops, just wasn't weed killers or pesticides. kill the crops, but also were using some type of new organophosphate that basically renders that soil useless for 3 years.
Yeah.
Now, I was asked by someone who knows these farmers, what can they do? I said, well, you remember World War II over London or over even the beaches at Normandy? You would see these balloons, okay? And they were everywhere. These balloons that were maybe 200-300 feet off the deck with a steel cable. Why were they there? Simply so that when fighter aircraft came in, they would hit the cables and tear their wing off. Some, in the larger ones over London, for example, went higher, and the bombers that came over, the Junkers bombers, if their wing caught that cable, it would pull the balloon down, but at the base of the balloon was a mine type device, and it would destroy the aircraft right there.
Beautiful.
Okay. So I said, well, it's very simple. Let's see what was used in the past. These crop dusters fly very low. 1/8 inch cable, those type of corkscrew things you put a dog chain anywhere you want your yard. Mount that in concrete. Get yourself a few helium canisters, industrial. You can buy them anywhere if you've got the money. And get the right type of balloon. Set them up 200-300 feet in the air. That's your airspace over your land, especially if you've got patented land. Most people don't, but a lot of these farmers have wised up and have done that. So they do have airspace rights to a certain altitude. Let's see if these planes can then come in at nighttime and hopefully, not see the balloons or cables. And it comes down to me saying that to someone is not saying get violent. It's like putting a fence for predators that would come on your land and kill your livestock, or for trespassers. But except these trespassers are coming from the sky. It's gone that far. And then they're having companies come in. Oh, gee, a few of them were traced back to Gates. And they wanted to buy their land after this happened. I mean, and the public is completely unaware of it's on a small scale now. It's basically what I consider test runs that they've done, testing the waters. The globalist concerns always test the waters first. They did it in October and November of 2019 before COVID was ever a thing. First articles you'll find 14 November 19. And then you'll find the progression up until January and February of 20. It all of a sudden became an issue. No, it had already been out there. They've been testing the waters. They're doing that now in a brazen fashion, both with water systems and in addition to the dusting, or let's say spraying of these lands, they have actively polluted farming water supplies. Chemicals that will break down over the course, not like your normal organophosphates with exposed to sunlight and atmospheric conditions and rain over weeks to months. We're talking several years.
Oh boy.
Now, what did we have a year and a half, 2 years ago? We had complete restrictions. Now, who put them? Difficult to find out, because Morocco and India are large exporters of potash and um, the various minerals that we use for fertilizing. Those shipments have stopped. Now, take the food processing plants that have been put out of commission. This, well, may I say the word shitfuckery on YouTube, going on with the fields and water supplies, but also then the civilian water supplies in several southwestern states. A state like New Mexico needs the help of other states because it's a 2.5 million population. It's a large area. One of the largest natural gas reserves and oil reserves in this hemisphere, in that one basin in the central and south central region of the state. I mean, this is all being done all under the nose of every American. And it doesn't matter if you're left or right. This will affect you in one way or another in the coming months. Now, add that to foreign, all of the, so let's stay stateside for just a minute. All the sociological engineering, the confusion. More people are confused and under tremendous anxiety from that confusion than they are anything else. Look at all of the nonsense being plastered on them. Well, gee, when Obama was in office, by the way, he still lives in Washington, D.C., the second president that has ever remained there, he by far the longest. The other remained 6 months because of a health condition. The name escapes me now. Again, I've been up since 2:30 nonstop. Haven't eaten, but I'm going to keep continuing to do what I do. Yeah, he's still in DC. Who's running the clown show behind this geriatric incompetent? I wonder.
Well, yeah, we all
and he
know.
takes his orders from those globalists that I was referring to. Let's simply rip the bandage off this wound. We have to. We can't dance around these subjects anymore. Look at all of the nonsensical BS being put onto the American public, where you have 0.04% of the population that you would call transvestite. And oh my God, they're plastered everywhere. No, I don't care what they do. They're more than free to do it. But mainstream media, look at the position, look at where they go, and they do not go. They keep it so surface, so middle school level. It's incumbent upon every American to not judge these things by what you wish or what your emotions pull you to. You've got to divorce yourself from that and look at it from a position of logic and reason and evidence. Evidence. And when you see what's going on, we are not prepared. We are not prepared in many ways.
No, we're not. And and this is the reason why. Beautiful, Ghost. Thank you so much. We're going to segue just on that. Hold on for 1 second. Jeff is in the house. What's up, Jeff?
What is up? Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. 5x5
Hey,
guys.
Jeff.
You guys can hear Jeff.
Hey, what is up? How are you guys doing?
Doing fantastic, man. We're having a really, really good stream. Wouldn't you guys agree? Great
Yes.
conversations. What are you guys thinking about the information you're getting here tonight, man? From the Ghost. Let me tell you something about the Ghost here really, really quick. He's a very busy man. Very busy man. very difficult to get him on because he's busy. So I am eternally grateful and honored to have him here tonight. I told you guys this was going to be huge. I told you this was going to be important because we're getting stuff that, you know, you're not going to get anywhere else and you're getting it here. Okay. Just a little caveat here. Once this stream is done, I am not monetizing this stream on YouTube, by the way, for obvious reasons. Okay. This stream will come down and it's going to be available on YouTube, but members only. And obviously, you know the reason why I am doing that, because if not, this will get nuked along with myself, and I can't do that. But for those of you that have not gone and registered for the monthly over on the website, not a problem. You can do it here by, you know, joining, you know, click the join button at the, you know, down below, and you can have access and review this stream again. So very grateful for having the ghost here tonight, man. Thank you again for being here, and happy birthday tomorrow again. Huh? How about that?
Thank you, sir.
Little applause there from the audience.
Every birthday is a good one. Every birthday is a good one. You know,
it is, brother. Trust me. It is. Jeff, really quick, since you're here, before we basically covered out of 4 topics. And again, Ghost has got the floor. So whatever it is he wants to cover based on what I suggested, totally up to him. You know, but we are currently right now, we're going to segue over into number 3, which is what should we be prepared for? Supply chain issues, financial issues, obviously fuel prices. How's that going to affect us? And especially, and I'm just going to throw this out there as a hypothetical. In the event that China should happen to walk into Taiwan, and I'm not going to talk about or ask questions about what the ramifications of that would be, other than supply chain. How will that affect us? Because, you know, everything comes from over there, you know, shortages on the shelves. And if you guys think that toilet paper was a problem back in the day, I got news for you, man. That's the least of your concerns right now. Buy a lot of newspaper, if that's even a thing, because in Cuba, okay, when we had no toilet paper, we used newspaper. And guess what happened? The anus learned how to read, and it was a blind eye.
I would say do whatever you can to have at least, and I know this will be difficult for a lot of people, 3 months supply or more of all of the basics, especially medications. And there's ways of doing that. Most plans, most HMOs, most physicians will accommodate that, especially now. It's interesting. I see several doctors on a routine basis because of injuries, and all they want to talk about is what we're talking about now. They don't want to, and then at the very end, we get 5 or 10 minutes. Oh yeah, here's my health issue. Yeah, everything's good, but let's get the refills. But out of 45 minutes, 30 to 35 minutes will be on questions on this. And it's because they've heard my voice, or they put 2 and 2 together, or in 2 of them, they've known from the beginning, because I had to have, let's say, special accommodations made because of my travel and things like that. But I would say, there's so many good resources out there right now. You don't necessarily have to get a ham radio, but at least get a ham radio receiver. Sea Crane, other companies like that offer great equipment. And you can get radios that will get everything from single sideband through short, long, AM, FM, aviation, all of it. And you can situate yourself with a radio for that for like $200, $250 with all the equipment to connect to antennas. Any antennas you can buy. And there's plenty of sites out there that show you basic antenna mathematics and basic antenna structure that where you can build it yourself with stuff that you could get from Ace Hardware. Why? Because you're talking about receiving worldwide transmissions on information. And that's an extremely important thing. I would say GMRS radios with at least a 32 to 36 line of sight mile capability. Medical supplies. You can go to your, any of your chain pharmacies and get all the basics. Bandages of all types, tapes, wrappings. If you can, there's companies out there online that you can get various antibiotics. I would get supplies of antibiotics. I would get potassium iodate in case some wackadoodle sets off something dirty, or even worse. You look at Chernobyl, for example. When that went hot, in the first month, it was the equivalent radiation release of 30,000 Hiroshima bombs. Fukushima was almost 10 times that when you got to the end of those several reactors that went. What that does is very simply fills the gateway to your endocrine system, which is the thyroid, with what it needs, iodine, good iodine, very quickly. So that radioactive iodine from whether it's a nuclear weapon or, God forbid, a reactor that should go south. And that would be more difficult in this country than it would be, say, in what happened in Chernobyl. Far more difficult. But, there are so many things that if you simply look at the survival situation, and it's not that I've been a prepper, but right now it is pragmatic to be a prepper, because it is better to have all of these things and not need them than to need them and not have them. There are, I would go so far as to Tyvek suits, gas masks, whatever you can afford. And I know this is out of the price range of a lot of people. So in addition to the basic dry goods foods, if you can purchase civilian or military MREs, definitely do that. There's a lot of good companies out there that produce these preserved foods with a shelf life up to 25 years.
Yeah.
And they're really actually very good. Better than a lot of people's cooking, I would add. Again, weapons and ammunition. And I'm saying this just because I don't have to go through the details. If you simply look at all the mass nonsense being pumped into this country, let alone what we have to the north of us, let alone what we have to the south of us, let alone what we know has crossed the border with skill sets that could make a perfectly good day a perfectly horrible day for a good portion of a region of this country. We're not in, we're not in fairyland anymore. We can't afford to remain in the hypnotized state that mainstream media has been designed, especially since I think around 2012-13, the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. The Smith-Mundt Act was passed prior to World War II, which gave the United States government, and you can see how, we were in a better moral stance then. We weren't propagandizing foreign nations with our shortwave broadcasts, because all radio then was either shortwave or AM, amplitude modulation. That gave the government at that time, which was more of a constitutional government, because we don't have that today, no matter what they tell you, it gave them the ability to propagandize foreign nations. We knew we had to propagandize certain aspects of Europe and the Pacific Rim. The Modernization Act, again, always invert these wonderful acts. The Patriot Act. Now, although, as many have said, and I have said over the years, the last thing a patriot would have ever imposed or agreed to. Well, the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act simply allowed this foreign entity in the District of Columbia to legally propagandize you.
Yes. Absolutely.
So they had already captured mainstream media. By the year 2000, mainstream media had been fully captured. In 91 or 92, between 91 and 93, I think it was David Rockefeller, who after I think his 7th heart transplant finally expired at the ripe age of around 100. But there's a speech that you can find, either transcripts or the actual, if they haven't scrubbed it, the actual video of him thanking everyone from the New York Times, which is, the New York Times, ladies and gentlemen, is the globalist blowhorn. It's the globalist town crier. Don't believe a damn thing that comes out of it, or if you do, please read carefully for the spin and the lie. It's there. And that's my humble opinion. I have to say that legally. But they're not the only ones. Another one that I can tell you that most people love, the Gateway Pundit. No, compromised. Compromised.
Wow.
Okay. Chief editor, up and on down, compromised. I won't go any further than that. I've already said enough for someone to probably want to put another contract out on me. Well, fuck that. This is why even Newsmax, no, its origins are rather dubious. Its current owner, no, I think they're doing the best they can with what they bought into. But they bought into an intelligence-created operation. Why? To catch those who were standing their ground. And it has, and I wish anyone that considers themselves liberal or left, it's not a matter of right or left. They've had you since 1980, when they started shutting down foreign bureaus. You remember Roger Mudd, Threlkeld, Cronkite, Rather, all these people. They would always, if they were sitting at the desk, they would go to the Rio desk, or they would go to the Rio de Janeiro desk in Brazil. They'd go to the Berlin desk, where they had actual journalists stationed in these locations. No, that was phased out bit by bit, piece by piece, purposely. And then at the same time, if you read the works of Charlotte Iserby, or are familiar with the dumbing down of American education, which if you're a sophomore in college, you're getting education, say in literature, that in my generation we got in 9th grade. Enjoy it. You're paying a lot of money for nothing. And then you're getting a lot of indoctrination, with the exception of universities like Liberty and a few others, a number of others that are trying to hold that line. And, if you're getting your information from that idiot box or that idiot screen, they're no longer a box, you're not getting anything close to reality. Anything at all close to reality. You're getting a facsimile. You're getting the 4 a.m. script up. And believe me, that's a real thing. I can go back to when they were trying to impeach President Trump the first time, when Adam sociopathic Schiff was sitting there. If you go back and look at those videos, he was staring off into nowhere. Why? Yeah. He had his earpiece was repeating over and over. And then he got his hard copy in front of him of what he was going to say at the end of the day of the proceedings. And what he said at the end of the day of the proceedings was great, what you would call, it was artificial statesmanship. Great things he said, but they had absolutely nothing to do with the kangaroo court that they were conducting. Absolutely nothing. That was just to give, again, the audience the feeling, and forget the feelings, ladies and gentlemen, the feeling that, something important transpired today. I asked a friend who would know implicitly. I got on the phone with him one day, and first thing I said is, who's writing his fucking script? Okay. And what came back to me, he said, there's a group at Universal.
Oh my God. Of course.
There was a table at Universal watching the proceedings, and then they would write his little faux statesmanship soliloquy for the end of his day. And then he would recite it as a frustrated screenwriter that he is, but he would recite it. Notice his eyes were wide open. That's a telltale sign when their eyeballs are wide open and you see the whites on the top and bottom and the sides. You're looking at a psychopath / sociopath speaking to you. And we know where he's been and what he's done and what he's associated with. Standard Hotel.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. You can always tell by the eyes. That's good.
Need I go any further? And I think the wonderful thing, the beautiful thing that we're seeing finally is They had always tried to segment the races and play them against each other. All this nonsense about white privilege. Well, if I went, maybe one day I'll write it in a memoir, and when I'm close to dying, I'll give it to my wife or daughters to publish. But let me tell you something. This whole fantasy, again, social engineering to dissuade rational observation and reason and evidence upon what is observed, as opposed to what is pumped over the airwaves over and over and over. White privilege? Well, if I went through my life from birth through most of it, well, I'd like to know where that shit was being sold, because I sure as hell didn't get any.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
I made my way, you know, by whatever it took. And nobody handed me a damn thing. But, you know, I'll leave that at that. People tend to get emotional when you speak that way, but we're all human beings. We're all children of the Creator. We have the greatest thing we have to offer one another is truth, honesty, loving kindness, agape, and a helping hand, because that time is already here. I've lived through hurricanes. I've lived through other natural disasters. I saw the best and the most beautiful come out in all people of all backgrounds. So I was over in my early teens any concept of judging anyone by their color, their origin, their country of origin, their race. Oh my God, please. We are being played like children by this globalist apparatus that wants 13.5 out of 14 of you dead. Do I have to repeat that? That's what they want, because science in the hidden patents, and that's a whole nother show how the patent system works and where it actually goes and who actually gets to dole them out, because so many brilliant inventors, and I know a number of them, have been stolen from. And we all have heard the stories, you know, from when I was younger, before I was born, of this kind of thing happening. You know, humanity owes one thing to humanity: to give and to help one another comprehend the real matrix that has us all, has most people, the vast majority of people. I talk to doctors, I talk to professionals in every level, and I talk to people who landscape from every level. And we all have one thing in common. We're all human beings, and we're all worried and at a heightened level of anxiety, at a heightened level of confusion. And this was all done by design, so that when a situation on top of Ukraine, which was horrible enough and is horrible enough, happens in Israel and the Middle East, it's nothing to do with what they're telling you. It is there to further push the agenda of, excuse me for that, it's there to further push the agenda of division. Divide and conquer, the Roman credo. That comes down to the human being as a corporeal entity, and that comes down to a family, that comes down to a neighborhood, to a county, to a state, to whatever it is, in whatever country you're in, township, prefecture, doesn't matter. Their goal is to divide and conquer. And they're doing a damn good job of it. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what your origins are. Matters not what your race is. Matters not where you were born, what you did and did not have access to. We're all Americans. And we are the last bastion, fortress, standing against the globalist agenda. We do have help outside of our borders in that respect. I can show you where China, Russia, and the United States secretly work together regarding the UFO issue. Now, I'm not going to call them the new terms they're giving them. No, they're unidentified, what we would call flying objects, where we've worked together, India included in that. Because all that you're being told, all the slow buildup, all of the television programming, the wonderful series with Giorgio Tsoukalos and all these other great people who've done a lot of wonderful work, but they're not even seeing the larger picture. I want to go into this, and then I'd like any questions from you guys or the audience. But we live in a galaxy with 400 billion stars, approximately. And what have we come to find between Hubble and Webb? There are even more planets than stars. And with as far out as we've been able to now perceive in the known universe, we're looking at 2 trillion galaxies. 2,000 billion galaxies. In the average at about 300 to 400 billion star systems in each one of them. Do the math. Do you honestly think we're alone? No, we've never been alone. And I know there's a lot of religious and faith-based beliefs that try to contradict all that. That's like saying the earth is the center of the universe and the sun goes around the earth, and we've been through all of that. We know the reality of it. There were, there's an example for in Russia, for example. Let me try to find that. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, you're fine. You're coming in good.
Okay. Let me see.
And while you look for look on that, Ghost, Jeff, please chime in with some questions for Ghost. We need to hear something from you as well, man. You got to contribute here, man.
Sure. No, well, first off, when you're talking about how many planets there are and how many suns there are, I've said forever that the concept that we are alone if every star is like a sun with the possibility of having extra planets, each with the possibility of having life. The only way we could be alone is if they're completely lying about space, which is possible, but I don't really think so. But it's got to be one of two things. Either they're completely lying about space, and then all the other weird stuff that goes along with that is true, or they're not lying about space, and there's definitely other life out there. but it's got to be one of those two things.
I'll tell you where I'm coming from. I've talked to men and women who've been in space. It's very real. There's a deceased Russian general, and the Russians are a lot more open about this. And again, I'm not saying I'm a big fan of Russia. I treat Russia like every other country. As they do, so shall they be judged. We'll judge them by their deeds. But there was a general, I believe his name was Nikolai Antoshkin. And he basically said some pretty powerful things regarding, what the Russians had dealt with. And when you look at his quotes, and the quotes of others from other countries who are in South America, Central America, the Far East, they all are saying the same thing. In all of their dealings with off-Earth entities, none of them have been malevolent. Stephen Greer makes that case over and over. The only ones that want people to believe that they're malevolent are those who stand to profit from putting a lot of nonsense in space, that a lot of it won't work for a while with the technologies they will release. They won't release the technologies that are anywhere from 40 to 4,000 years advanced that we do have in our possession. Okay? It's again, power and control. Those that I spoke about in the sovereign banking, global banking layer that own us as slaves, because we're not sovereign. You can say that all you want, but we're not, as per the system. And that's another series of outlining and discussion on how the system works, why it works the way it does, and who stands to maintain their pathetic position of power by keeping the truth from us. Now, just like the officers and the enlisted in the several bases in Montana where the nuclear weapons were powered down, rendered, useless. One of the capabilities that I'd say a dozen off-Earth entity groups have is the ability to shut down the flow of electrons. Okay? Whereas there was an incident in Russia where they not only shut them down, but they put them into a countdown mode and then shut the countdown mode down at the very last few seconds, knowing exactly what they were doing. Most folks don't know that we, Russia, and I believe one other country, I'm not going to name it right now, have fired nuclear warheads at the moon for they wanted to do actual real tests regarding the bell ringing of the one Apollo launch, where they sent the lunar module back down to crash into a crater, and the moon rang like a bell. We've sent warheads to the moon to try to do that. None of them worked. We've sent warheads into, let's call, a little higher than low Earth orbital for above atmospheric detonations. They were all nullified. It's on film. Some of those films are out there. And they're trying to sell through the, especially lately, the last three that I saw testifying in Congress, the one had the bright psychopathic eyes, was almost spasmodic in his responses and saying that, that they were possible threats. If they were threats, we wouldn't be here now. Why? Because in reality, the truth is, if they wanted us gone, we wouldn't be here. That's not the case, because they have always been here in conducting one level of quickening or another. And again, like Luis Elizondo, for example, I give him credit for doing what he's doing, but I can tell him he's been horribly compartmentalized.
Yes, he
and
has.
some of the people he's working with are not telling him what they know, but they're doing it, drip, drip, drip. Get the right producers that'll do the job, wag the dog type things, and put it out there. But they're putting it out there under the military-industrial establishment, military-industrial entertainment, infotainment, and a few other we can add to that. That's how large that swath has become, to keep people from comprehending the reality of what we're dealing with. We're still being told by these brilliant physicists and these wonderful cosmology shows what they believe they know. That is compartmentalized. Time and space and consciousness. They're not giving what they've come to comprehend. I'd rather not use the term understand, but what they have not yet quite comprehended on how it works. Yet there are those, let's say, areas and factions that do have at least a working understanding of how time, space, and all of this comes together. More of it involves the concept of consciousness, awareness, the ability of this sentient being, no matter what the creature is, a dolphin or a human or whatever. If that dolphin can say, I am, and I'm aware that I am, well, then you've got a sentient being. Human beings do that naturally. We didn't get to that point alone. And I'm using broad strokes in this presentation for a reason, because there's going to come a point to where we must remain in power on this planet. We must maintain our position. We must keep the Babylonian money magic system flowing to maintain that power. That's coming to an end. This is what they fear most. And they fear most when others than what they believe they've appointed have actual contact. Now, there's a number of people out there that can bring you to that point. Now, whatever I'm saying, I am saying out of either direct knowledge or experience. And I'm not going to go into detail with that in this broadcast later on, but consciousness is at the root of it all. And once humanity comprehends some very simple truths of the reality of perception and awareness, intent, will, which makes up what we term consciousness. I am aware that I am aware of being aware that I am. I'm not saying I'm God. Any fool that says that is an idiot. God I refer to as the source of all creation and all of the dynamics that unfold from the fractal aspect of pi. There was one of the oldest crypts in Egypt in the southern region, and I forget the name. Again, I'm tired. But it's easy to look up. There's an inscription over the entrance to that tomb. And there's also a sort of a doorway of two, what would be rectangular blocks and a rectangular block on the top that you would walk through, but molecularly burnt into the one rectangular block, molecularly burnt into it, meaning it's not going anywhere unless that rock is destroyed, is the flower of life. And on every continent, whether it's under one of the paws of the lions at the entrance of the Forbidden City in China, whether it's in India, Africa, Australia, Central and South America, North America, the most basic representation of that, of pi, the ever expanding circle that can not reach perfection, is the Star of David, or the flower of life. The flower of life is in a spherical representation under the lions, the entrance to the Forbidden City in China. You'll find that in Europe. You will find that representation, that mathematical representation of pi. When there was not that we understand, or we believe there was not intercontinental communication, and everything that we archaeologically and historically uncovered says that there's been no communication. You'll find that even with the most remote tribes in one form or another in North America, everywhere on this planet. Where did this come from? What does it represent? How did the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incans, the Inca Empire, how did they do the things they did here completely separate from what was done in the Egyptian Empire, the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, Babylon, Mesopotamia? Now, I'm not reflecting all of these shows that you'll see on TV, and I'm here to confess that I have never read a book on UFOs in my life. I'm just telling you, because the course my life took and the interactions, the wonderful and magnificent people I've come to know, and the work that I've done with my skill sets, you know, this is all of it very much a reality. And it's happening. Sightings, as people call them, are happening more and more every day, specific locations around the world more than others. And you have to ask why. There's someone, I don't want to name her name right now, but everybody will figure it out. She is a beautiful, beautiful woman, human being, everything from the heart. Offered to come out when my wife had our last child for a month. And I said, no, your husband needs you. He's ill at the time. She has a beautiful white mane of white hair. And what she endured. Who von Braun was the one who brought her under his wing so that she would stop the weaponization of space. But she had people that stood against her at every turn. But she made remarkable strides. But finally, it's become too much for her. She's passed it on to someone else. I wish I had had the time and the energy. And maybe that'll happen where I can assist with whoever's doing that. But the entire weaponization of space is merely an economic and power grab presentation farce. Yet we have to deal with it. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'll take questions. And
I have one really quick with regards to I'm pretty sure that yourself and many people, Jeff, maybe you as well, and everybody else out there in the chat are familiar with Senator Burchett from Tennessee. He's the one that was spearheading the whole UAP hearings up in Washington. And I don't know about that, but I think that they're coming up on their third convention, if you will, here pretty soon. And based on what he has said, and based on, you know, just my, I don't know, intuition, if you will, which comes back to the point, Ghost, that you spoke about, where there are certain entities that under no way, shape, or form will allow the actual truth to come out about this, because there's too much money at stake. There's too much power at stake. There's too much control at stake. And I believe that this is not going to go anywhere. I don't believe for a minute that, you know, DARPA, MIC, I should say, you know, Jeff, your mic.
That should be better now.
Yeah. I don't think, thank you. I don't think that, they're going to smoke and mirror and dance around this entire thing. I don't think that they're going to come out and actually say, okay, this is real. This is what we got. Here it is. In my opinion, I don't think it's going to get to that. I think it's going to be a dog and pony show. Very little's going to get out, and they're just going to bury it. Because if they were really to come out, in my opinion, and actually show the world, here it is, this is reality, this is what we got, there will be an awful lot of people that will get smoked. Am I off base here?
I think you're absolutely right with regard to the corporate interests called the federal government. I think you're absolutely right in that regard. They will never, of their volition, do it. But I think there's going to be a time when they have zero control. What they don't realize is they have zero control now. And there will be a time. It's not that anything's going to come in and be our savior as far as these off-earth cultures. But there is going to be a time where they're going to show themselves. When that is, that's going to depend on us and how much violence and destruction we choose to engage in. But I can tell you this, when they decide to show themselves, and they're showing themselves every day, when they decide to show themselves, then the game's over. And this is what they don't realize. They're given autonomy. We're given autonomy. We're given freedom of choice, all of us. Every individual upon this planet has the freedom of choice. There's going to come a time when they will present themselves, but they're not going to present themselves to the Capitol building or the Kremlin or any other state edifice, let's say fiction of authority, because this is a term that people need to become familiar with. It does fit within our tradition of law. Our tradition of law is ideally meant to meet the greatest good for the greatest number. Triage, if you will. Those in holding the reins of control are backed by what? The threat of violence or the application of violence through force. Force and violence are two different things. There will come a time when humanity is crying out to such a point that all they need to do is make themselves known. There are locations in this country and throughout all over this planet where it's not what is occurring above ground, what they're measuring, what they're theorizing. It's what's underground. It's underground for a reason. And it's beyond our understanding for a reason. But there will be a time when it doesn't matter. The mountaintops in Switzerland to the servants in DC, the square mile of London, the city of London, won't matter. There will be a series, and this is where, like, there has been a lot of information put out about remote viewers perceiving certain things and violence.
Yeah.
And yes, that I'm in contact with many of those groups of wonderful abilities. And they see violence. They see darkness. There are others that I'm in contact with, and I agree with them, where beyond that is not a dark horizon where no one can see beyond. It's a horizon that they cannot fathom, because it will be the point to where humanity has to lay itself open bare. Every individual, every single individual alive on this planet. And the power structure will have no say in that progression. Sorry to lay it on them like this, But that's the reality that's coming. It's not a matter of when, it's a matter of events. They
Are we
can
clo-
either
Are we close? Are we close currently?
We're closer than we've ever been. If they think 2030 is going to be, well, look, it was 2000. Then it was 2016 to begin.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was 2022, 2020, then 2022, now 2030. Aren't these idiots seeing a pattern that they're being pushed off? It's a natural force of repelling that type of simply, well, tyranny, tyrants, petty tyrants. Your Klaus Schwab, and what's the other what is his name? Ari, the young pseudo intellectual in my book. What's his name? That's right there beside Klaus Schwab, saying that, oh, we won't need all of these people. No, you won't be needed.
Yeah.
There's no reason to reduce the population of this planet. There is reason to edify and provide things such as energy that we can provide for free, virtually, other than the setup of the systems. We have all of this technology. They're the ones keeping it from progressing. That's why they have to push their dates back. But I assure you, their dates, if they continue, will be pushed back ad infinitum. But it's not going to go that far. Because at a certain point, humanity is going to say, God, show us the reality. That's simply the mindset that we are naturally coming to because of the inordinate, ridiculous, maniacal, psychopathic confusion and chaos that is being impressed upon humanity globally. It's always been order out of chaos. Well, I talk to people every day, and the one thing we say is, let them bring more chaos, because the faster they bring it on, the faster it ends. And humanity gets to see that next level. And they flooded it with nonsense of light beings and this and the light system and all of these disinformation, bullshit, nonsense they put out there. What? Where a good move was made, and whether someone did it under the idea that they could control it or not, were the videos of the gimbal, and there's 1,000 more that they haven't released. I mean, it's laughable. There's so many pilots that I've talked to that have seen so much, and they decide to put out, to drip in their way. Oh, here it is. But we don't know if it's a threat. It's not a threat.
No, we're the threats.
And those who have studied it, those who have been engaged in it, those who have even come within inches of their lives, by other human beings because of their work in it have proven no. They're dripping this stuff out in the hope that they can control it. They cannot. It will reach a point. And I think sooner than later, where the exposure, or as people like to call it, disclosure, is made. And then we begin again. Okay, who are we? Who are they? How have we been integrated through eons? And now that we're here, it would be a wonderful place to move forward. And I know I'm using broad strokes, but I have to say what I'm saying at this point. But again, it comes down to consciousness. It comes down to the ability to say, maybe everything I think I know was wrong. And without ego, and without being defensive, and without saying, oh, well, these are demons and we're the firmament, please. Simple observation with a $500 telescope will lead you to see otherwise. I mean, and there's going to always be the laggards. That exists throughout history in every aspect of endeavor. The laggards, the ones who say, this is heresy. The earth is the center of the universe, the sun, on and on and on and on. We've seen it throughout history. We've seen it reinvigorated again. And again, I've given the sources, the names, the amount of money, and I'm not saying that to argue. I'm saying that to say there is a wondrous reality right in front of us, and we're our own worst enemies with regard to unlocking and opening that next step into the future. And I don't think mankind has come this far to just simply revert to Ukraine and what's happening in the Middle East and the nonsensical slaughter and murder and horror, which is nothing more than an old ancient playbook being used to blind everyone to the realities of what is, what has yet to be perceived, and understanding what has been perceived, without the bias, without the prejudice, without the programming within a defined matrix that follows the concepts of simulacra and simulation, etc., on and on. We're there. It's up to us.
This is a question for Jeff and for you two, Ghost, also as well. And you guys just, I don't know. I've talked about this with Ghost offline. We've had many of a conversation. Jeff and I, we've spoken about this too, especially here recently. And I'm just trying to get a better grasp because I have an idea. Everything based on numerology, everything based on biblical timelines and things like that. All these dates being thrown around, events happening every 7 years, fine, all of that, fantastic. The buzz in the community right now, whether you choose to believe it or not, okay, everybody wants the crystal ball answer. Everybody wants a date and they want a time of when the shit's going to hit the fan. I get that. Okay. But as of right now, events starting from the end of Ukraine, August 31st of this year, and that when the fall gets here, weird things really happen because these paganists, you know, they all operate under the fall timelights and dates and shit like that. From where we are right now to the end of this month, leading into November, which is supposed to get worse from what I hear, by the end of December, it's really going to be sucky. And then we go into the first of the month for 24, and I don't know, 24 financial collapse are being spoken about. This is part of my ending notes. Financial collapse, hyperinflation. It's going to really suck. Jeff, Ghost, I mean, you guys, where are you on this? Am I like freaking stupid here, or does this have any validity to it?
I don't think that the weird dates have any validity with all of the conspiracy talk that I've heard, because really it's just been dates after dates after dates, and it always ends up being not real, or some source, you know, says, oh yeah, something sort of did happen, but you didn't see it, but I know about it. And it ends up being completely arbitrary to all of society. So you just seem like a crazy person if you're trying to push dates on people. I would say the date Tuesday, March 5th, 2024, election day, is pretty important. But I think it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And they're trying to poke every bear in the world to start World War III so they can not hold those elections. That's my opinion.
Wow. Okay. Ghost?
I agree with that. I think there's a high probability we are not going to see an election cycle in the normal course. I can come to no other conclusion with everything that I know and that I see, what I'm engaged in. There's a high probability that is not going to be the case. We're not going to see a normal election cycle, because we are going to see an engineered financial crash. And that plays into both sides' playbook. In the end, you have that one individual. God, I'm sorry that I'm going on all this. I've slept maybe 6 hours in the last 3 days, so I'm trying to remember his name. A little bald guy, but
Stelter.
I can't.
What's that, Jeff?
I said Brian Stelter.
No, he's a joke. Just saying his name is a joke enough. That's funny enough. The one with Schwab.
Schwab. Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I can't.
Oh, his minion, the psycho scrawny dude. Really
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll look him up. I'll get a picture in a second.
Yeah. I mean, you've got all these WEF educated tools, especially in Canada, unfortunately. But you've got, well, how many people in this country are we finding out have been through that indoctrination? Buttigieg, a number of them. I see the clash of the natural resistance, and that comes through comprehension of what we're really dealing with in these people versus their agenda. And they put people like Gates and Schwab out front. You know, they're the ones you are trained to love to hate. Meanwhile, the real ones in the background, those names are the names we need to start putting out there. The names that people are not that quite familiar with. And I can give you an example. Soros' son, for example. Where is he setting up shop in the United States? In Las Vegas. Why Las Vegas? What, because of the gambling or the all of the nonsense of that industry? No, he's there because Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and several other Western states are national security treasures. And I say treasure in the idea that what is still in the ground, everything from basic gold and silver to rare earth minerals, we possess quite a bit of. We possess all we need to maintain this nation. And if you go back to the Bundy Ranch situation almost a decade ago, wasn't so much that they were grazing on lands that they were claiming they had right of use for based on trying to remember the legal term.
Not imminent
Anyway,
domain, right?
You had the Harry Reid machine.
Okay, yeah.
That still exists, but others have taken the place because they wanted to make very large profits by leasing the mineral rights to China, for example, as concession, as a repayment of debt. Who was buying all of our, the Federal Reserve every day produces 9 to 12 billion in junk bonds. I'm calling them junk bonds. But those are the bonds that are created based on the money that is printed out of nowhere. In other words, GAO says, well, we need 13 billion to keep things going today. And the Federal Reserve, again, a privately owned entity, by these supranational banking dynasties. It's created out of thin air, typed in. It's then divided into bonds. Why bonds? Because if you buy those bonds, like a lot of these, let's say, legacy families do, you can wait 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 years before you collect on that bond, tax-free. That's why what is in essence a trillionaire is paying taxes on $30,000 a year because they're buying these bonds. Other countries we've cajoled into buying these bonds. China, Japan. I don't know how many times we've twisted the arm of Japan to buy, 2 trillion or 3 trillion in debt. And they've done it. But it's all a fiat system. It's all based on the gold reserves following the greatest conflict in human history, World War II, Marshall Plan, the rebuilding of Europe, and also the rebuilding of Japan and the Empire of Japan at that time, and the Pacific Rim. And then further into history in the 70s, we began with China. And we simply, based on gold reserves that were absconded with from primarily Asia and also Europe, that's what they based the current fiat system we have today that ran out, the math ran out in 87. It was reinfused. That got us to 2008. They called it then printing money out of thin air, quantitative easing. And that got us to now. And there are no more steps. We either reset the system based on a agreed to, like BRICS are doing, precious metal basis, and a dollar today would be worth $1 20 years from now. That's what the system should, that's how the system should have played out. But again, greed, power, the ability to create funds out of thin air, put it on the backs of generations as yet unborn, to create the very unacknowledged special access programs that deal with all of this technology that could be used for a, quote, fake alien. And it will be fake. I don't care if every government on the planet says, oh, they're attacking us. It is a staged fake event because certain technologies are there that should have been released for the betterment of mankind. And when you do that, populations naturally even out to a 0 birth rate or even a negative birth rate in countries that are able to, like Germany did, rebound after World War II. They were at a negative birth rate. I believe they still are, as far as the indigenous German population. That's, you know, that's that Malthusian theory. That's nonsense. Nonsense. The technologies, the very technologies that have been kept from industry and improvement and innovation would have kept population down from going to 7, now on to 8 billion. Why? You wouldn't need, you know, to give birth to 8 or 10 children just to farm your rice paddies to survive. The lust and the greed overrode the logical thinking that the science and the data proved would have made a more stable world. But it would have removed power from power centers that had traditionally inherited it from 400 years on to now, 400 or 500 years on to the present. And they didn't want to give that up. And that's your dynasty families in Europe, your black nobility. You know, three out of the 5 top producing nations on this planet are constitutional monarchies. The constitutional is nothing more than a placation to the population of those countries. why the fuck do we still have monarchies? Give me a break.
Yep.
There is no justification for those vestigial edifices to continue in any role anymore. The Vatican will claim through the Roman Empire that they gave us the plow, and they gave us masonry, and they gave us art and architecture. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They controlled those things that human beings in individual achievement created. So that argument falls flat. They'll make that argument. And so will royal dynasties make that claim. But look at the nonsensical bullshit when you really get behind the curtain of the house in Britain and the Orange family and those in Germany, France, other countries, Italy. No, it doesn't add up anymore. They are vestigial concepts, and people buy into it. It's simple ignorance. Simple ignorance.
That's awesome. Ghost, I think we got quite a few folks that are bugging out already because it's kind of late. And tomorrow is what is it tomorrow? Anyway, tomorrow is Friday.
It is Friday.
How about that? Yeah,
Yes,
we're all
really.
we're all sleep deprived. But anyway, Jeff, man, thank you. I know that you have family in the town, man. I hope everybody's in good condition. Everybody's doing well. Can you at least tell me? I know you had gender reveal, brother, but boys,
Good
girls.
to see you, Jeff. What?
Yes.
Yes, tell us.
Yeah, it's we have the one boy and one girl fraternal twins.
Woo!
So
Holy smokes!
Congratulations. God
Thank you.
bless.
You guys
Definitely
need to work
appreciate
on
it.
getting that baseball team together. I'm telling you, man. Either that, or
Yes.
we're gonna have to buy you a TV.
Well, I'm working on setting up a scrimmage between my family and Tyson James' family.
There you go.
Pretty much any American sport we can work out at this point with our sizes.
Fantastic. All right, guys in the chat, man, I appreciate all the comments. I appreciate you guys being here today. All of the support as always. Ghost, have an amazing birthday tomorrow, my friend. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, man. I am so grateful that you took the time out of your schedule to come on and share with us. Hopefully, guys out there, we're going to dive into Vatican assassins, when this man has time and he's got, the energy to dive into it. That will happen, because I'm telling you, if you guys got value out of everything that he shared with us here today, I can't tell you what's going to happen when we dive into Vatican assassins. The man knows the book inside and out, and I'm fired up and excited and looking forward towards that. So any last thoughts, Ghost?
Just to say thank you both. Thank you very much for the time. And, I do what I do because I just feel a duty. You know this, Armando and Jeff. I just feel a duty to do it. And so many others are saying so many wonderful things, and I thank you for the time, and God bless you both. And I'm humbled to be able to do this.
The honor is all mine, my friend. We're the ones that are humbled. All right, guys. Ghost, hang on for like a few minutes while we cut out of here. Guys, thank you for being on the stream. I really appreciate it. Again, once this stream is done, I am going to go ahead and take it down, and it will be members only here on the YouTube channel. So if you guys want to revisit this and come back to it and you're not a member on the channel yet, go for it, because it'll be there, because obviously I cannot make this public on the channel and monetize it, because trust me, it ain't going to happen. It'll get nuked. So with that, my friends, as always, my sign off the same. I am going to be having some downtime coming up with the missus, so I will catch up at some point next week. Nothing happening over this weekend. I will catch up with you guys over the next weekend, over the next week, I should say, either remotely or from studio if plans happen to change, but I need to take a little break with her. So with that, have an amazing weekend. And as always, keep your powder dry, keep your head on a swivel. And most importantly of all, God bless. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.